Greetings. This is the one you've known as Jesus the Christ. The fear of not surviving and the fear of not being loved are the two most basic fears, and all others stem back to these two. As a child, your life literally depended on your parents' love, so survival and love are very intimately tied in your psyche. This is why rejection or losing someone's love can be so devastating, especially if someone didn't have their mother's or father's love as a child. Then any rejection or loss of love can be a trigger for that old primal pain. If you didn't receive enough love as a child, then as an adult, getting and keeping someone's love can seem like a matter of life and death, as if your very survival depended on that love, which of course is not true as an adult. Your survival isn't dependent on someone loving you or not loving you. Life is what takes care of you. Life provides what you need to survive, including other people. But you have to be available to life's gifts and support, and fear interferes with being open and available to life's bounty. If you lacked love as a child, then needing others to love you often becomes a driving force. This need to please can dominate one's existence, leaving you exhausted and still not good enough, not lovable enough. Since you are not in control of other people loving you, and since others often have a limited capacity to love, this need for love is rarely satisfied. Others can never love you as you dream of being loved, because others have egos and their own limitations in their ability to love. Those who feel most in need of love usually didn't receive it when they were young, and because they didn't receive it, they grew up feeling they were undeserving of it, unlovable. They took their parents' inability to love them personally and took this on as an identity. I'm not lovable. I'm not like other people. There's something wrong with me. I don't deserve love. As an adult, they feel alone, isolated, like they don't belong. As a result, they close themselves off to others, and their fear of not being loved becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. They do lack love, not because it isn't available, but because they aren't available to it. The negative feelings they have about themselves make it difficult for them to perceive and receive any love that is being given to them. So they're likely to continue to feel they aren't loved, even when they are. Because they feel unlovable, what they receive from others never seems like enough. Whatever love they receive is never enough to convince them that they're lovable, for until they see that their own beliefs are why they feel the way they do, they'll continue to experience a lack of being loved. They're like a bucket with a hole in it. They can never get enough love from others to feel full and complete. They feel they need others to fill this hole without realizing that they can only do this for themselves. They have to learn to plug the hole themselves so that they can experience the love that others do give them. This is why it's said that you have to love yourself first before you can love others. Loving yourself is the way to plug that hole. Then the bucket fills up and spills over to others. Otherwise, there isn't enough love inside oneself to give to others. The bucket is empty, or almost so. Until one learns to love oneself, one's life is always about getting love. Only when one learns to love oneself can it be about giving love. But unless some healing takes place, that day never comes. It's ironic that those who want love the most actually tend to give it the least, or when they do give it, there are strings attached. Love is given in order to get love, but that isn't real love, is it? Love is something they hoard as if it's a limited quantity rather than infinite. They haven't realized that the way to experience love is to give it away freely, to waste it on everything. But how could they have learned this when they learned the opposite as a child? They probably learned that love is something that's doled out to them only when they behave a certain way. They learned that love is conditional and dependent on how they behave, which means that it isn't there whenever the child makes a mistake or just acts like a child is bound to act. How can they possibly feel love for themselves when they're being told they're only lovable at times? How lovable are you if you're only lovable once in a while? This is a setup for great misery and a life of trying to get love in all the wrong places, when it's there, available inside, all along. It is your nature to love, and everyone is therefore inherently lovable. The desire for love and the fear of not being loved puts these individuals at a great disadvantage in relationships, which often depends on the other person getting love or other things out of the relationship as well. If both people are looking to get, then both are going to be unhappy. Some of the most unhappy relationships are between two needy people looking to get love from each other. More often what happens with people who need love is that they sell themselves for it. They give themselves away to someone who's willing to take what they have to give. They end up victimized by giving too much to others while not taking care of themselves. What's unfortunate is that those who will do anything to get love, to please others, don't ever come to know themselves. They're too focused on what others like and need instead of on what they like and need. The need for love causes them to become divorced from their own heart, their true self, which is trying to guide them to happiness, peace, and love, to the life they're meant to live. Your heart knows how to make you happy, and when you're happy, love flows from you. And when love flows from you, love comes back to you from others. But it isn't others loving you that feels good, but you loving others. That's when you feel love, when you are loving others, not when others are showering you with love. The whole world could love and adore you, but if you aren't connected to your own heart, to your true self, you won't experience their love, because you won't know it inside yourself. How do you learn to love yourself when you didn't as a child? First of all, it isn't necessary to love everything about yourself. You don't have to be perfect to love yourself. Granted, it's easier to love yourself when you behave kindly and nicely. But even if you don't, you can learn to forgive yourself and accept your imperfections and love the you that wants to be good, that wants to express love. That is your true self. You only behave badly when you're identified with the ego, the voice in your head. Then it's very difficult to love yourself, because that voice is judgmental, unkind, petty, jealous, and negative. I'm not suggesting that you love the egoic self, the false self, only that you accept that the ego is part of the human condition, and that you have compassion for yourself and others for this predicament. You accept that you have an ego, you forgive the behavior that comes from the ego, and you do your best to not indulge in that behavior. What you love about yourself is your willingness to master the ego and to try to be your best self, to align with your inherent goodness. Get to know this goodness. Notice it within you. Notice the impulse to be kind and compassionate. along with the ego's negative behavior, that goodness is there as well. The ego's negativity is the default of every human being, the path of least resistance, which you must resist. What resists the path of least resistance, this negative programming, is who you really are, the mysterious self that is living this life, your true self. Notice it, get to know it, realize that that is who you are and who you can be, rather than the ego. With every effort to align with your innate goodness, that goodness will be brought forward to the forefront. Your true self is completely lovable. Get to know it. Love it. Appreciate the goodness within you and within everyone else, and this alone will change the world. Like all fears, the fear of not being loved is an illusion. It's impossible for you to not be loved, because it's impossible for you to not love. It is within everyone's reach to love. No one is so handicapped or wounded that they can't love. Yes, not having been loved as a child is handicapping in this regard, but no one's capacity to love is ever completely disabled. Love is a choice. It may not seem like a choice, it may feel difficult, and it may seem risky, but it's nonetheless a choice. You always have the choice to love, and in fact, what you discover is that love is not difficult or risky at all. It isn't loving yourself and others that puts you at risk, but not loving yourself and others. Love is the safest thing to do, and it's the only thing that can build a beautiful life. Like all fears, the fear of not being loved is overcome by doing what is most scary, by loving. Do some inquiry around what keeps you from loving others, from not only expressing your love to others, but feeling it inside yourself. Ask yourself, how do I stop myself from expressing love? What am I afraid will happen if I express love? How do I stop myself from feeling the love that's inside me? What am I afraid will happen if I feel love? Take some time with these questions. Write down your answers and take a look at them. You'll discover the falseness of your thinking and of your unconscious programming. Everyone loves, but not everyone is aware of this love. Many feel dead inside, incapable of loving or feeling what others are feeling. This, of course, is not true. You believe love isn't there, and so it isn't experienced. This belief is a self-fulfilling prophecy. You don't experience love because as a child you got in the habit of repressing love, denying it, and not allowing it to be felt. Love was too painful to be felt. It was painful to feel love for people who frightened you or made you feel bad. They were supposed to teach you about love, but instead they taught you the opposite. They taught you to be afraid to love. They taught you not to trust this feeling. They taught you that love hurts, and now you're afraid of feeling it. To conquer this fear, you have to see that love is your salvation, not something to be afraid of. You have to begin to allow yourself to feel it inside. You have to begin to notice that love exists within you and what it feels like. Discover what the experience of love is like, and then give that your attention. Whatever is watered by your attention flowers. That goes for fear as well. People's fears become so believable because they've fed them with their attention. They've given them life. Now you have to give life to the love within you by looking for it, sitting with it, and letting yourself experience it. By saying yes to it instead of no, it will begin to blossom within you. Only you can do this work. No one else can experience your love for you. I can only point to it and give you these instructions. But ultimately you must choose to give it life, to let love live, to let love be felt and expressed. This may sound hard to do. The mind makes everything seem difficult, but it isn't hard. Once you choose this, you'll see that love has been there all along, waiting for you to notice it. Love rejoices in your discovery of it. The angels rejoice in your discovery of it. We are all pulling for you to align with love, because that's what this life on earth is all about. The winners of this game of life are the ones who learn to love. Of course, everyone eventually does learn to love, because the game of life is rigged to teach you this. That's why it is actually easy to learn to love. The forces that be want this for you more than anything else, and they'll do whatever it takes to help you learn to love. You have the force of the universe behind you when you finally make love instead of fear your constant companion. Thank you for being here. I am with you always.